Hello and welcome back to the Tyranny Stories channel, where today we're in a little bit of a different location because from the clip before I was reorganizing my bookshelf to fit all of the books that are in here now because I have not updated them in a while and there have been a lot of books added, so I tried to fit in as many as I could. I think I'm going to need to get another bookshelf, which I guess I would put on the side over here. And honestly, I could move all the manga up there. But for now, what I want to do today is choose a couple of the books that I'm the most excited to read and pick one to read based on the first line of the book. And I have plenty of books to choose from here. I have, probably almost 200 books. I do have a little bit of manga too, but that's not going to count. It's just going to be the books here. So, and some of them will be rereads, some of them will be, new books to me, but I do want to go ahead and pick those out, and then we can talk them over, and then I'll pick one out and probably share my thoughts as I'm reading it. Alright, so these are the shelves we are working with, and I can't actually really fit them all in frame. All of this over here, that's all manga, and then there's some more manga down here. But for the most part, these are just books that I want to look through and see which ones I'd really like to read, which I think Fahrenheit 451 is definitely going to be on the list. Let's see, what else is there? Oh man, this book I've had for such a long time, and I just have not ever gotten into it because look how big this book is. This thing is huge. So, but I loved the cover, and I love the author too. I've read another book by them, and I think I want to put this one on the list for sure. And I don't know how many books I'm going to pick out. I think probably like, I don't know, maybe like 5, 7 books, something like that. I think, I don't know how I'm going to get this one out, but I do want to attempt to read Museum of Magic. This one came in a Scribbler box. Oh my gosh, this one's really hard to get out. Because these top bookshelves, you can't put them the way that they should be. So this one came in a Scribbler box, and I've been excited to read it, but just never gotten around to it, so we'll add that to the list. What other books do I want to read? Let's get down here and set these books down. Let's see. I do have a lot of really good books in here. What do we have down here at the bottom? I feel like I have to put Dracula on here just because it is spooky season and I feel like I need a book from spooky season. So I'm going to put this on there. This is my Barnes & Noble's edition. It's absolutely beautiful and it looks so nice on my shelf. I want to get more of these beautiful editions. So we'll add that for 4. And then what shall be 5? Let me put this back, fix that. Man, there's so many, like, good books in here. It's hard to, like, decide on one. I think we will choose... See, I can't put Twilight on there as much as I want to because I have been wanting to reread these books because I have Twilight and I have Midnight Sun and I'm in the middle of Midnight Sun, which has taken me a long time to read. But I already know the first line of Twilight because I know that the books and the movie is like the back of my hand. Let's see. Heck it. We'll put this one on there too. We'll put Dune on there. This one is just like it's a small like pocket edition copy and it's from after the movie came out and oh my god, it's so thick. But I think we're going, is that a sticker? No, that is part of the book. Awesome. So we're going to put that on there. And this is going to be my stack that I'm going to look at each of the first lines and choose between them which first line I like the most, and then that's the book I'll be reading for this vlog. So definitely let me know which book you would have chosen and what some of your favorite books are, or first lines and stuff like that, because I might do another video like this. I don't know. I wanted to choose one from my shelves for the first one because of all of these books that I own, you would be surprised by how many I have not read. It's kind of crazy, but I am going to take these over to the desk, write down the first lines, and then choose between them which one I like the most, and that's the book I'll be reading. Okay, so I have my stack of books over here. Oh, I can't look very well. I have my stack of books over here, and I actually, I added 2 more books to the, to this as well, so another 7, and, I added them because they are books that I was looking at. I was looking at the shelf afterwards and thought, you know, those ones look like they would be fun to read too. So I wrote down all of the first lines here. They're not very long, honestly. The longest ones are like 3, lines long. They're not that bad. Or 3 lines of, you know, writing it here. Anyways, so the first one is going to be from Wings of Fury by Emily R. King, which the cover is beautiful. Look at this thing. So this book, all of these books, well, most of them, I have no idea what they're about. So I am really going off of first lines. So this one, the first line is, a lot of them have prologues too, so I use the prologue because that's where you start the book. So this one, the first line is in the prologue, and it says, "My mother told me that men would speak about the Golden Age as a time of peace and happiness for all." Was an interesting start. So we obviously have a main character, and their mother is telling them something, and it's interesting that they mention men specifically, and the front cover of this book really kind of makes me think that, this has something to do with war. It looks kind of Greek too, so maybe it's like a Greek kind of thing. So this is interesting, and I want to know what the Golden Age is and how they're going to get there, because that's kind of setting the book up, you know, which is what you want to do with the first line of a book. And, you know, what is this Golden Age going to entail? Is it going to be a time of peace and happiness for all, or is it going to be different? So that's an interesting start to a story here, and like I said, I have no idea what it's about, so it's a good first line. This second book is going to be, or the second first line is going to be from the book Spellbreaker by Charlie N. Holmberg, which the cover is very pretty. All of these covers are beautiful, honestly. I love them a lot, which is kind of what drew me to a lot of them. So this one, I also have no idea what it's about, but it looks like maybe it's the same person living 2 different lives or something like that. I'm not sure, because it is the same person. Like, if you turn it upside down, it does look the same. So, the first line from this one is, "Elsie hadn't meant to burn down the workhouse." Immediately, we have some action happening. So, she burned down the workhouse, but the question is, how did she do that? Was it, you know, from normal causes? Did she make it happen? Is there something supernatural happening here, like magic maybe, because it is called Spellbreaker? You know, taking our clues here. And did she work at the workhouse? Was there something that happened there? You know, stuff like that. So, interesting start. Definitely has me wanting to know more about it. And the cover alone is very pretty, so, I mean, I have no idea what this book is about, so I guess we will have to wait and see if I pick that one. The next one is going to be from Dune, which there's a lot of books to this, like, not series per se, but, like, there's a lot of different books. So in Dune, there's, like, 6 books, and then there's a bunch of other books here that are also about Dune, so I don't really understand how this series works. I've just heard that the movie is very good and that the book is also very good. The first one, anyways. So this is Dune by Frank Herbert. I have the pocket edition one, so it looks like it's 1 billion pages long. And I mean, with how many words are on a page, I feel like this book would be 1 billion pages long. Anyways, don't really know much about this one either, other than it's in the desert and they have this little thing on their nose when they're in the I don't know. I have no idea. So the the first line to this one is actually from a quote, but I think that kind of counts because it kind of helps you, understand the start, which this one is, it starts with, a beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. Okay, so we're starting at the beginning of something here. I mean, the beginning of the story, but the beginning of something, and it's really important that, the balances are perfect. They're not, one swayed one way, one swayed the other way, so that sounds very interesting. Also, Jason Momoa is on the cover. Where is he? There he is. He's right there. So, and then Zendaya is over here somewhere. I think that's her right there. So, definitely want to read this. Oh, the guy from one of the newer Star Wars movies is right there. I think he plays Poe in one of them. Anyways, that is a good first line too. I think that's they're all very interesting. Like, I have to say, they're more interesting than I thought they would be. And it's going to be a lot harder than I thought to pick pick one of these books to read, because now I want to read all of them. And then the next one is going to be, and because it's spooky season, I picked a book that kind of feels like it would go with spooky season. My beautiful copy of Bram Stoker's Dracula. This one was hard to figure out the first line because this book is told in a series of journal entries. And I know I know more about this one than I do about the other ones, but obviously it's about Dracula. But it's about a person who meets Dracula and then a whole bunch of stuff happens and, Dracula. So the first one, or the first line, I had to go with, because it says 3rd May, Bistritz, which is a place he's at, I guess, left Munich at 8:35 p.m. on 1st May. Arriving at Vienna early next morning, should have arrived at 6:46, but train was an hour late. So with this being told in a series of journal entries and, letters and stuff, it was hard to, see what the first line was here, because this part is it's just an informational thing. So here is where it starts, but it doesn't really start until the next sentence, but that was the first sentence, so we're gonna go with it. And it would be interesting to know why they're going where they're going. Do we have a name for this person? Do we have this person's name? Jonathan Harker's journal. Okay, so this is somebody's specific journal. I believe it's the main character's journal. And so it'd be interesting to know why they're going to Vienna. Why was their train an hour late? Like, was there anything that happened to make their train late? And where are they headed to and why? Obviously, that's why you read a book, is to find out those kind of things. But a good first sentence kind of gets you thinking, what are we doing, here? I believe we're in Germany right now. I believe Munich is in Germany. So we're doing something. Well, we were in Germany. I don't know if Vienna is too. It might be Italy. I don't know. I'm kind of dumb, so I don't know. And then the next book is going to be Museum of Magic by Beth Revis, which this person's also, I was looking at the books that they've written in general, because they have the other books they've written at the back here, and the paper is really pretty too. Like, it's a very nice white, and the paper feels very thick and nice. They've written a couple of Star Wars things and a bunch of other really cool stuff, so I'd be interested to read those. Anyways, so this one, I think this is part of a series because it has a 1 at the top. I didn't even notice that. I thought it was its own thing. So this is called Museum of Magic, and the first line is also a prologue. A lot of these are prologues. It says, the little iron bell tinkled as a tall, thin woman pushed the door open. Okay. What are we in a store? Are we in an office? Are we in somebody's home? And then who is this tall, thin woman, and why are we mentioning that she's tall and thin? And, you know, is she young? Is she old? What is there to learn about this character? That's kind of what I want to know about this book here, and it's significantly shorter than a lot of these other books, but it's still, you know, a very interesting thing to think about because I don't really know anything about this book. This is another one I got from Scribbler. 3 of these books have been from Scribbler so far. So that would be interesting to find out about and read more of this book. But the next one is going to be my favorite book of all time. I'm always trying to look for a reason to reread this book, and this might be it. I don't know. We'll see. This is obviously by Ray Bradbury, and I have the 60th anniversary edition. Look how pretty this book is. It's so, yes, I love everything about it. And actually, I learned, like, a couple months ago, they made a movie. Well, they made a movie before, but then they remade it in, like a couple of years ago, and it has the villain from Black Panther, the first Black Panther. It has him in it, and I don't know if I'd want to watch a movie of this book and ruin it for me, because I do love this book so much. So, and it's not a long story either. It's, let's see. It has a lot of other, like, informational stuff in it, too. It is 158 pages long. Yes. Yes. So it's not a really long read. Like, this middle piece, that's the book there. This is all just other informational stuff, and then there's some at the beginning as well. But the first line to this one is, "It was a pleasure to burn," which I do obviously know the story of this book, and that, having read the book already, it, you know, you kind of, you understand what it means more, and you are able to have more insight into what's happening, because I read this book in high school. I don't remember if it was for a project or it was like a group read. We all had to read it, answer questions about it, something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but ever since I read this in high school, this has been my favorite book of all time, and I feel like it always will be. I have not read anything better yet. His style of writing, I mean, the time period, too, because this was written in 1951 is when this was published. So, the time period with which this book was written for, it feels like it's still just as important, like some of these themes, some of these, you know, things that happen in this novel, it feels like they're still just as important today, if not more, because technology has become such a bigger thing, and people aren't reading as much, and, you know, stuff like that. So, this book, I feel like, is always going to be important to, you know, our society and all those things, because it's just, it's such a good book. So this one, I might pick this one anyway. I don't know. We'll see. But I do have another book that I do really want to read, but it is very long. So I don't know if I'll end up finishing it in this vlog if I do pick that one. But the last book in our little stack here is going to be the book. Oh my gosh, this book is so big. It's like 800 and something pages, I think. Yeah, it's 820 pages. And it's so, like, look at how big this book is compared to, like, a normal sized book. It's a decent chunk bigger, like, looking at them next to each other. It is a decent chunk bigger than any other book. So this is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which the cover is so beautiful. That's honestly why I picked it up. I have no idea what this book is about. And the author looked familiar when I picked it up, but I wasn't entirely sure. It's by Christopher Paolini. And I have actually read a couple other books by him, and I just didn't know that it was the same person because I don't remember authors very well. I read Elder Race, which is a shorter story. It's probably 150 to 200 pages, really not long at all. It's a very good book. And then he actually wrote, I just learned this right now. Is it at the beginning or at the end? All of his books. Let me see here. Oh, okay. So it doesn't really tell you that many books that he's written at the front here, but he wrote the Eragon series, which is called The Inheritance Cycle. But I read the first book and part of the second, so I have read a little bit by him, but I was reading at the back here about him, and this is the first adult novel he's written. The other books were obviously young adult and stuff like that, so it would be interesting to see this one. And I've kind of flipped through it a little bit here and there, just kind of like, oh, you know, am I ever going to read this book? It's so big, it lays flat. This book is so big and heavy that it lays flat on its own. Anyways, so the first line of this book, which seems to be about, you know, space, galaxies, you know, things like that. The first line of this one is, the orange gas giant Zeus hung low above the horizon, huge and heavy, and glowing with a ruddy half-light. I like all the detail that is put into this first sentence here of this story, because that is, oh, that's so funny. It literally says New York Times bestselling author of Eragon. Man, this is what happens when you don't, like, actually read things. You just look at something and go, oh, I'm going to read that because it looks cool. Which really goes to tell that covers are very important to get right. So this one is actually just a chapter 1 of this book. And, I like the little teeny tiny little just etchings on it too. It's very pretty. So it's really interesting to have such a detailed description of something, because you can see it in your brain as you're reading it. You can definitely, like, already see this, and you can see, you know, what's happening and make a whole, like, I don't know, kind of like a picture movie in your head, which is what I do when I read. I'm definitely, you know, seeing what I'm reading, which is why it takes me so long to read sometimes, is because I'm, you know, visualizing what I'm reading. And it might be why I enjoy the book version of something more than a movie more often than not, because what I visualize is not going to be the same as what is depicted in a movie. But this one, I do love the level of detail in it, but the book is really long. So I think if I was just looking at the first lines of these books, I think my favorite one would probably be... Man, I'd really have to think about this for a minute. Okay, so I narrowed it down to 3 books now. And I'm so torn on these because, you know, all of these lines are, to me, they're pretty good, which, you know, I chose, my top 3 currently are Spellbreaker, Museum of Magic, and Fahrenheit 451. Because if you go into Fahrenheit 451 not really knowing anything, every sentence brings you closer to understanding this story. And obviously this is a very nostalgic read to me, so I'm really hanging on to it here. But if I didn't have this book in the mix, so if we put that book away for a minute because I just really want to read it, maybe I'll just read it anyways while I'm reading these 2 books, or one of these 2 books. So this one is The Little Iron Bell Tinkled as a Tall, Thin Woman Pushed the Door Open. And this one is Elise Hadn't Meant to Burn Down the Workhouse. Both of these leave you with questions as you're, you know, just starting a read, which is what you want. You want to keep readers engaged and, you know, asking questions and thinking, you know, what's going to happen next? Why is this important? You know, things like that. So I'm really torn between these 2 books, if I'm honest. I think I'm going to choose the Museum of Magic, because I want to know what this tall, thin woman is doing here and what's going to happen. And the cover's really pretty too. So I think I'm going to read this book, and we'll think about all these other books later. Maybe we'll use them for different vlogs. But I think for this one, I'm going to choose Museum of Magic. And as soon as I start reading it, does this have like chapters or anything? I'm not sure. No, so this one, it looks like it. So the titles of the chapters, I'm not reading the actual words, but the titles of the chapters seem to be of a like an oracle deck. So the prologue is in the unopened, unshuffled deck. So then the next one is the sun, illumination, and an important journey, which cool. And then the one after that is going to be Two of Swords transposed, indecision, confusion, and information overload, which for me is helpful to see what they mean under them because I have no idea. And it's the Two of Swords transposed. That's what makes me think that this is an oracle deck. So I think after each chapter, I'll probably talk about it a little bit, unless I get too sucked in and read a couple chapters at a time. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to start reading this book soon, and then I will update you guys as I read it. I'm really excited to read this, though. I was really excited to read all of these books, but this one especially, looking at these first lines here. Okay, so I'm sitting in bed now, and I've read the prologue in the first, I guess we'll call it chapter of this book so far. I am, how many pages in? 16 pages I read it. 17 is the new chapter. So, what's really interesting about this book, actually, is that I read the little thing at the beginning here. It has a wonderful quote by William Shakespeare from A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is, "If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear." And I think that really sets the tone of the book, reading it now, because in the foreword, the author talks about how this book was made and designed to be written in a totally new way. So every week they outlined a chapter with a variety of paths for characters to take, and then they drew a tarot card to set the mood, and then used elements of chance to determine how the story would unfold. Mostly they used dice rolls, but spiced things up with coin flips, more tarot, or by drawing options from a cup. Each chapter ended with a chance for readers to vote on the direction for the next chapter. And the end result is this book, which is crazy. A story that was impossible to plan and guided by the fate of the readers. Every chapter opens with the name of the tarot card that was drawn as it was written, as well as a quick summary of what the card means, which is helpful for me because I don't know anything about tarot. The story was originally published on Kindle Vella and on Patreon, and the sequel was written in the same style. So, it's interesting to have read that and kind of understand that this book was written almost as like a choose your own adventure, but one path was chosen in the end, to write this whole book. But the author had the readers participate, or not the readers, I guess her fans participate in creating this book. And now I want to get the second book of this series, because even just the prologue and one chapter in, I'm already hooked, and I feel like I'm going to be reading this for quite some time today. I don't know how much I'm going to update you guys, but I'm definitely going to be reading this for a while. Because in the prologue, what happens is there's the main character, Emmy, she meets a woman and tells her the story of, I don't know how to say this woman's name. Elspeth? Elspeth. Okay. Who came to this town on a ship following the Mayflower. Everyone believes this woman did in fact practice magic, including the customer that came in today, but Emmy makes it clear that she doesn't believe in magic at all by the end of this, 6 pages, not even 7 pages. It literally says, with each word being emphasized with a period, as magic was not real. So, she tells the story of this character because she's the descendant of Elspeth, but no one knows that, and she's not allowed to let anyone know that she doesn't believe in magic because of the Museum of Magic that she works in. The whole goal is to get people to believe that magic is real, so they'll buy the stuff, they'll go on the little tours, all that stuff. So, as she's, closing up the shop for the day, she's worried about her grandfather, who went on business abroad, but he usually, does business, but he also goes to other museums, and he enjoys himself while he's gone, and he's been gone for, I don't know how long he's been gone. He's been gone for a couple months now, or a few months. And he used to write to her every day, but now she hasn't heard from him in a while, so she's kind of worried about what might have happened to him. But she doesn't really have much time to worry about her grandfather when the another character shows up named Puck. And they show up as if by magic because she doesn't know how they got in there. And then they're attacked by a man in a trench coat with iron daggers and a crossbow. And one of the bolts does hit the character Puck, because he's a fae, his blood is green. So when he bleeds green, and she's just like, what on earth just happened? And so that's where I'm at right now. And this chapter was called The Sun, Illumination, and an Important Journey. Which sounds like this is what kind of really starts the story. Because before that, she's just, living a mundane life, living at this museum of magic and stuff. And now she has this character to deal with, and the man in the trench coat, which she has no idea what's going on with that. So moving into the next chapter, I'm sure we'll get to see more of what's going on. And the first one was called Prologue: An Unopened, Unshuffled Deck, which I would assume is what it was when the writer Beth Revis wrote this. So I'm going to read the next chapter or the next few chapters, and then we can talk more. I'm not sure. But this book is really interesting, and I don't really want to put it down. But I do have, little sticky notes for the end of each chapter, so I can just kind of write briefly what happened. But I do want to keep reading, though. So I'm going to get into this, and then I'll update you guys when I learn something interesting, or I just feel like talking to you guys. Okay, so over the last day, I've read a few more chapters, and I'm about 40 pages in. And I have to say, this book, maybe I'll make another vlog finishing this book, because there's a lot to go left. But every chapter leaves you wanting more. Like, every sentence, every paragraph. Like, I don't know. This author writes so well, and I don't think I might try to learn how to write like them, because they put so much detail into things, but it, like, drives the story forward. So in chapter, let's see, where did we get to last time we were talking? So Puck tells Emmy she's a witch, and she doesn't believe it and questions everything he's saying is true. Puck is here to help her create the same spell her ancestor did to keep her safe, but Greybeard wants to kill her before she can finish the spell, because then he would be able to come into the house as he pleases. And there's a lot of, like, artifacts and books and stuff in there, so they would definitely want to do that. But then okay, so that chapter was, what was that one called? Two of Swords Transposed, Indecision, Confusion, and Information Overload, which this person encapsulates each card, oracle card, in the chapter, and the chapters aren't very long, they're like 5 pages. So then in the next one, Five of Pentacles, which means perseverance, change for the better, and renewed hope. Here I wrote, Emmy, after realizing she could be a witch, begins sifting through the broken bottle, trying to figure out how to recreate it and protect the house. But her grandfather is also in danger, and she needs to save him, because the hunters, we learned that in the last chapter at the end, Greybeard was a hunter, and he's, I guess, part of a faction of people who are after her to kill her because she possesses the same magic her ancestor did, and they don't want her to be able to do that, so they're gonna go after her grandfather to use him as, like, leverage to get her to do what they want. So she has to find a way to save him while trying to also recreate the witch bottle that was protecting the house. So that's very interesting. And then in the last chapter that I've read this far, it's the Devil Transposed, which is finding strength, being on the right path but feeling trapped. So at this point, Emmy sees a woman in the mirror and needs to say her name to help her, or release her maybe. We don't know yet, but she has no idea who the woman is. Her and Puck go to the library in the Museum of Magic, and her magic leads her to the story Macbeth, so they decide that they'll go to Scotland to get more answers, because he can draw, like, little, not runes, I don't remember what he calls them. Let me get to the end of this chapter and see. An ash sigil. So he makes an ash sigil with, obviously with ashes on the ground, or on a surface, and then he can, like, make a portal to whatever place they're going, so they don't have to, like, take a plane or whatever. So that's where I left off, but man, this story, the way it's written is so interesting too, because, you know, you have to remember that this was written all on chance. Each week, this person, the author, would choose an oracle card or tarot card, whatever, and go with it, and then, you know, use dice rolls, corn flips, draw decisions from a cup, and then have readers, you know, vote on what happens next, too. So this is really interesting, and I'm definitely excited to end up reading more of this book, and hopefully finishing it in the week, because in 2 days I've read like 40 pages, and that's with having a lot of, I've been busy and stuff, too, so, I think with having more time to read, I'm definitely going to read a lot more. And I want to get the second book, too, which I don't know what color it is. Maybe it's, like, purple or red or something. I don't know. But let me know down in the comments what your thoughts were of the book so far, if you've read this book or the second one, and what other books you'd like to see me read. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!